when you try to just kind of get to what you want to see. So they have their new mock draft out. The mock draft 4.3 came out today. And the people that do this, TJ McCrite is the 33 scouting department head, and he's a former personnel executive for the Eagles and former director of college scouting for the Colts. He's got 25 years of NFL scouting experience. This kind of sounds legit, right, Ian?
Kinda, yeah.
Okay. He's also got Kevin Cohn and Bryce Young. Number 2, I was a little surprised by this. Anthony Richardson to the Texans at number 2. That's the first kind of curveball there. Number 3, Tennessee trades up. Now, let me say this, Ian. If Bryce Young goes number 1 and Anthony Richardson goes number 2 and Tennessee trades up to number 3, who do you think it's for?
C.J. Stroud.
Okay. Tennessee trades up to 3 for Will Levis out of Kentucky.
That would be a shocker.
Now, here's what they have to give up. According to the 33rd team, this is the deal. Tennessee moves from 11 to 3. They give up the 11th overall pick, the 41st overall pick, the 72nd overall pick, the 5th round pick in the pick number 147. Remember, they don't have a 4th round pick. The Atlanta Falcons have that for Julio Jones. And next year's 2nd rounder. So they're giving up their 1st, their 2nd, their 3rd, their 5th, and a 2nd rounder next year. That means if the Titans were to do this, if they were to move all the way up to 3 and they were to give up all those picks, the Titans would not be picking again until the 6th round of this year's draft. So that 6th round.
Might as well not even have a draft.
Might as well not have the draft. To get Will Levis. Now, I always say this on draft night. You never know how good these players are going to be. Sometimes you know they're not going to be any good. I never thought Kyler Murray was going to be a star in the league. But look, I didn't think Lamar Jackson was going to work in the NFL, and he's had a really good career so far. So we never know. I thought Matt Leinart was going to be unbelievable from USC. So you never know. But Will Levis trading the entire draft to move up to 3 and take Will Levis? The 33rd team writes, quote, the Titans move from 11 to 3 to fill their big quarterback need. And the Titans give up 11, 41, 72, and 147 to go along with a 2nd-round pick in next year's draft. Will Levis will be a good fit in the city, and with this team, the Titans feel like they are a quarterback away from being contenders in the AFC. Let me say this. They're a lot more than a quarterback away from being contenders in the AFC. They don't have a second receiver. They don't have a left guard. The offensive line is a total mess. They are not a quarterback away from being contenders in the AFC. In fact, I think you can argue they've got a quarterback that can keep them contending in the AFC because as long as he's been the quarterback, they've been contenders in the AFC. I mean, I understand the idea of you think a guy is the man and you think this is your chance to get him, you got to jump up and you got to strike. And Kansas City thought that about Patrick Mahomes. And supposedly, so did New Orleans that same year. They thought, if we can just hold off until Mahomes gets to us, then we're going to take him. And Andy Reid jumped them and took him. Buffalo traded up. They traded their left tackle in order to move up, and then they traded up again in order to get Josh Allen. So if you think this dude's the bee's knees, I get it. But you'll have no other picks in the draft. And you're doing it for Will Levis? Like, Will Levis. Now, if they traded all those picks to get C.J. Stroud, I still wouldn't like it because I think you're setting up C.J. Stroud to fail. But at least C.J. Stroud, checks all the boxes. Size, check. Athleticism, check. Playing against good opponents and playing well in those games for the most part, except for Michigan, check. C.J. Stroud, in my opinion, he's got it all. So that's why Will Levis, he didn't even throw for 100 yards against Tennessee this year. He didn't even throw for 200 against Vandy, and they lost at home. And you're going to trade your entire draft and next year's 2nd to move up and draft Will Levis? And again, these guys that do this mock draft, I mean, with the 33rd team, they are not some random bum on the street. Now, they've worked in the NFL for 20-plus years. By the way, with the 4th pick, if Bryce Young goes 1, Anthony Richardson goes 3, the Titans trade the entire world to move up to take Will Levis. The Indianapolis Colts take C.J. Stroud with the 4th pick. Oh, my goodness gracious. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025 here on the program. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Somebody texts in and says, have you addressed what Jim Wyatt said that your scoops come from Baskin-Robbins? We'll get into that today. We'll get into that one coming up later today. Texter said the last time the Titans ever drafted a franchise quarterback and it worked was Steve McNair. Well, I get that, but I use Jacksonville as the example, right? Should Jacksonville have not taken Trevor Lawrence because Blaine Gabbert stunk? Should Jacksonville have not taken Trevor Lawrence because Byron Leftwich didn't pan out? Should Jacksonville have not taken Trevor Lawrence because Blake Bortles was terrible? I mean, this idea of, well, the last time we drafted a quarterback high in the first round, it didn't work out, is never a reason to not draft a quarterback in the first round. That is nonsensical. Just like Indianapolis, right? So the last time Indianapolis drafted a quarterback in the first round, it was Andrew Luck. The time before that Indianapolis drafted a quarterback in the first round, it was Peyton Manning. And I don't know if this was the most recent time that they drafted a quarterback in the first round, but they also drafted John Elway in the first round. Now, they didn't have John Elway on their team because he didn't want to play there, but they did draft John Elway. So Indianapolis drafted John Elway, Peyton Manning, and Andrew Luck all in a 30-year period to be quarterback of their team. So does that mean that this pick, Indianapolis is going to use it for? Even if it's Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, does this mean that that guy's automatically going to be a superstar? Because Manning was a star, Luck was a star, Elway was a star. So, well, I guess that all these picks in Indianapolis, they're all going to be good. And because, Jake Locker was no good, and Vince Young, although Vince made 2 Pro Bowls and was Rookie of the Year, Vince Young wasn't a franchise quarterback, and Mariota wasn't a franchise quarterback, does not mean that taking a quarterback in this year's draft means that that guy's going to stink. And every time something like this comes up, it happens all the time. Where I think the correlations are more direct are when it's a guy who fits a certain set of criteria and there's a bunch of boxes that check the same. For instance, Julio Jones and DeAndre Hopkins. Julio Jones was 31 years old. He was injured. He was coming off of a down season, and he was expensive. And the Titans traded the pick and took on the money, even though we begged them on this program not to. We begged them. We said, please don't do that. And they did, and it didn't work. Well, now DeAndre Hopkins is out there, and DeAndre Hopkins has all the money, and they're probably going to want, now I don't think they can get a good pick for him, but he's coming off of some injuries. He had a PED suspension, and he's old. And people still text into the text line like, oh, we got to get DeAndre Hopkins. I'm like, you've already done that. And you are still paying for it with Julio Jones. So that's where you can say, okay, old injured guy, same thing, same age, same issues. No. But not, well, we took a quarterback 7 years ago and it didn't work out, so we shouldn't take quarterback now. I think that's just crazy. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We will get back into your phones. Plus, now that for the most part the draft process is over, the combine, the pro days, there's no more film. Now, they'll still have their top 30 visits and workouts and things like that, but for the most part, the draft process is done. Now it's decision time. And there's one decision that I have for the Titans that I'm ready to make. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman & Company right here, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Every Wednesday at 8:30. Come on. Join Robbie and Rexrode for The Choice is Yours.
2 sports questions, 2 non-sports questions.
They'll answer a couple of questions about life and sports. The Choice is Yours is built by Jarrett Companies. You have a choice. So when you have a need for site and utility work, fire protection, concrete and asphalt services, the choice is simple. It's Jared Companies. For more, visit JaredCompaniesInc.com. The choice is yours. Wednesdays at 8:30 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Spring in and style up with huge savings on top athletic brands at your Dick's Sporting Goods warehouse sales store in Franklin. Stay active this spring with up to 70% off the athletic styles you love. Shop deals on thousands of styles from top athletic apparel and footwear brands like $10 tees, tanks, and shorts for the family, $20 swimwear, $20 golf polos, and running footwear for $60 or less. Find incredible deals and incredible style at your Dick's Sporting Goods warehouse sales store in Franklin at Watson Glen.
20 years ago, when Genesis Diamonds came to Nashville, this was one of the most expensive cities in America for diamond jewelry. Our radical approach and no middleman pricing changed that forever. And now we're doing it again, this time with lab-grown diamonds. We were shocked to find out what the other mall stores and the other big radio advertisers were charging. They sell their platinum 4-carat VS2 lab-grown earrings for $15,720. We sell them for $6,900. Their 3.08 carat lab-grown round diamond with G-color VS2 clarity is $10,045. We sell it for $5,900. Looks like they might be going back to the old ways. If they're charging this much on lab-grown diamonds, kind of makes you wonder what else they're selling at the same outrageous markup. Nashville, we are not going backwards. At Genesis Diamonds, our non-commissioned trusted advisors are here to give you all the information with details you can trust and prices you can count on. Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Krebs Kubota wants to help you get your job done right with the parts you need and a service department that can handle maintenance and repairs from the largest excavator to the smallest 2-cycle engine. For your farm, home, or commercial needs, Krebs Kubota will keep your Kubota running like a Kubota. Krebs Kubota, Middle Tennessee's preferred equipment dealer, with convenient locations in Columbia, Franklin, and Murfreesboro. Also online at KrebsKubota.com.
If you're hiring, it can feel like you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. You can hope the right person comes along, or you can just use ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. In fact, ZipRecruiter has helped a lot of business owners find their needle in a haystack, like Marco, president of operations at Telly Tires and Auto Centers. Because Telly Tires has grown a lot in the last few years, Marco needed to hire everyone from a receptionist to a store manager to a head mechanic.
ZipRecruiter helps me find all the right people, even the most difficult jobs to fill. ZipRecruiter helps me keep my business running.
Take it from Marco and millions of other businesses who've used ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter can help you find the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/RADIO. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
A show that lives and breathes sports.
Focus in, focus in, focus in.
From the SEC.
Credit to the Alabamas, the Georgias, and the Ohio States of the world.
To the Preds.
They've been in a lot of really tight games, but they're not winning enough of them.
To the Titans.
He's talking about what this franchise has built over the years.
Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace.
What is this? Check it out.
Weekdays from 11 to 2 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Strong opinions and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Looking at your guys' situation at wide receiver, is Jackson Smith-Njigba somebody you're looking at to help complement Traylon Burks?
Of course. I mean, I think we're looking for guys that can get open, that catch the ball, that can do things after it, that can create separation. Absolutely.
What impresses you about Jackson?
Well, I mean, I think his ability to work inside. I think he's got some ability to work outside. So just early on in the evaluation process.
There you go. That was Vrabel talking about Jackson Smith-Njigba at Ohio State's Pro Day. Now, again, what's he going to say? Like, let's just say, they ask, so are you looking at Smith-Njigba to be opposite Traylon Burks? I mean, of course we are. I mean, the last thing he's going to do is say, no, we're not interested in that player, Bobby. We really actually think that he kind of stinks. So you're never going to hear that. But this is the time of year where pretty much the draft process is over. I mean, I'm sure there's still a couple more pro days in the books, but you have the draft board. You decide, okay, this is how we're ranking the players. You go to the Senior Bowl. You go to the Combine. You go to the pro days. Now you've got your top 30 visits. But for the most part, that draft board is probably not firmly set, but it's probably pretty set. And so now what's happening is you're going around what's called shields. You know, this guy has a shield because he might be a bad guy off the field. This guy has a shield because he might be an injury risk. And Jackson Smith-Njigba is very clearly an injury risk after what happened to him last year at Ohio State. Played the first game of the year against Notre Dame. I think he got hurt in warm-ups, if I'm not mistaken. That he injured the hamstring and then tried to give it a go, but then couldn't give it a go, and then throughout the course of the year tried to give it a go, but he could never get fully healthy, and then finally he just shut it down, including opting out of the college football playoff and saying, I'll be ready for the draft and everything else. So he's got an injury shield on his card, on the draft board. And now is where you're starting, in my opinion, if you're a team, this is where you're starting to decide, okay, are we in or are we out on him? For instance, Jalen Carter, I think, is a guy that a lot of people are going to be kicking around questions of, are we in on him or are we out on him? Drew Rosenhaus came out yesterday and said he's so sure Jalen Carter's going in the top 10 that Jalen Carter is not taking a visit anywhere outside of the top 10. And the reason why I think Drew Rosenhaus is doing that is because all these teams that would have never thought they had a shot at Jalen Carter are now talking to themselves about, do we have a shot at Jalen Carter? Well, let's bring Jalen Carter in and get to talk to Jalen Carter and see if Jalen Carter's a good kid or a bad kid. And so instead of making Jalen Carter go through that, what Drew Rosenhaus is going to do is if he does fall out of the top 10, then he's going to make teams like the Titans at 11 sit there on the board and ask themselves, okay, do we take him? Well, what kind of kid is he? We don't know. Oh, God, what are we going to do? And then instead of, we got to know him, and we know that Jalen Carter is really not that impressive, and his answers for the drag racing and the weight gain and the other stuff, wasn't very, let's pass. So all the teams are having discussions like that right now. I think you have to be a no on Jackson Smith-Njigba. And I say that as somebody who knows the Titans have got to get more playmakers on offense, specifically at that position. And if you told me that they brought in the best receiver in this draft and that going forward it was Burks, the best receiver, and Okonkwo, I'd say, okay. I'm not saying I love it because I'm not convinced that Okonkwo has shown that he can be a starter in the league yet. And Burks had a couple of games, but Burks was not consistent, so I don't love it. But I would at least say, okay, we can work with that. And Smith-Njigba, by all accounts, is by far the best receiver in this draft. And yet, after 2 years of injury after injury after injury, and 2 years after, Julio will be okay. We're not worried about that hamstring. Caleb Farley will be okay. We're not worried about that back. Robert Woods will be okay. We're not worried about that knee. Bud Dupree will be okay. We're not worried about everything. After 2 years of that, you're going to turn around and with the 11th pick, the best pick you've had in eons, since you flubbed up and drafted Corey Davis at 5, you're going to draft Smith-Njigba. After you called out David Long Jr. for his hamstring, and you've called out Christian Fulton for his hamstring and groin, you're going to bring in Smith-Njigba. And if Smith-Njigba gets hurt right away, now what are you going to do? So, to me, we'd bring the medical people in, the trainers, the doctors, things like that. We'd say, okay, give me your full report. And if they didn't stand on the table and say, Jared, I absolutely, positively promise you that he will not hurt that hamstring again, I'd say take him off the board. And they're not going to do that. They're not going to get up there and guarantee you that he's not going to hurt that hamstring again. You all have doctors. You know how that works. So I'm taking him off the board. To me, I'm not interested in Smith-Njigba. Not after what the Titans have been through. And he might be a hell of a player. But I'm not interested. I cannot take him coming off of a year in which he missed the entire season because of a hamstring injury. I can't do it. Let's go to Brad, who's up next. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for calling 615-737-1025. What's up, Brad?
Hey, I hope when Trevor's on, I'd like you to ask him this question.
Okay.
You know, we've got 11 and the 41 pick. Does he believe that we have a better shot at getting 2 starters if we go wide receiver first and O-line the second, or the other way around? If we go O-line first and then wide receiver second? Because the reason I ask is I'm looking at all of these prospects and where they play out, and it seems like that you have a better shot at getting a starter in the second round at the offensive line, at the wide receiver position than you do with the offensive line. So just ask Trevor.
So I'm going to just answer your question for you, though, Brad. Thank you for calling. It doesn't matter. Like you're saying, like, okay, can we get 2 starters, right away? And who's more likely to start this year? That doesn't matter. That does not matter. If you're sitting there at 11 and you think, okay, we need 2 starters, 1 at receiver and 1 on offensive line, and we know we can get John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota. We know we can get him in the second round. We know we can get Steve Avila out of TCU, who's a guard and a center. We know we can get him in the second round. So let's go ahead and take Quentin Johnston at 11, even though he's not the 11th best player in this draft. But Paris Johnson is the 8th best player in this draft, but we think we can get a starter in the offensive line. No. You got to take the best players. That's how you have to do it. And so I agree with you that the Titans need starters. And I would assume if you take a guy at 42, he needs to be starting. If you take a guy at 11, he needs to be starting in some capacity or another. But this trying to fill your holes by saying, well, can we get a starter there with a... No. You got to take the best players. That's like if Tyree Wilson's available. And most people think he will not be. But let's just say he is. Somebody's going to be available who all these mock draft gurus tell you is not going to be available at 11. Let's say Tyree Wilson is. Do you take him? You've already got Simmons and Autry and Landry and Key and Weaver. Do you take him? Okay, what if he's Micah Parsons? Because Micah Parsons went with the 12th pick. Now do you take him? But you got all these guys. Or do you take the next Lawrence Taylor? See what I'm saying? 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Basketball is in the books, and I've got one major takeaway from the NCAA tournaments that I am truly amazed by, and we will get to that coming up next here on the program, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. Also, if you want to win Preds tickets in our lower bowl section 102, just text the keyword Superbook, all one word, to the game text line at 615-737-1025, and you will be entered to win. And you can win with 102.5 and 106.3 The Game, and you can win with Superbook.
All the big plays.
For the win! Yes! Vanderbilt wins it!
All the big stories.
Quarterback carousel, what the Titans decide to do at the quarterback position.
All in one place. We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3.
10% chance of making the playoffs.
Checkered flag is in the
Team with
air.
incredible talent.
Every team in the league.
The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Al Gill here from my friends at Dunkin'. Warm up and feel the love with Dunkin'. Treat yourself and a loved one to a brown butter toffee hot or iced latte, which is superb paired with the bacon avocado tomato sandwich. Be sure to try the all-new stuffed biscuit bites. It's a warm biscuit dough wrapped around a mixture of bacon, scrambled egg, and cheddar cheese. Visit us at our newly remodeled Dunkin' on Briley Parkway in Nashville, or the new Dunkin' in Mount Juliet, and our other locations throughout Middle Tennessee. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Terms apply.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
What if you could do business without busy work? With Ramp, you can. Ramp is the future of finance with smart automation, corporate cards, and spend management. Just imagine, no more expense reports or shuffling wrinkled receipts. No more slogging through invoices or getting surprised by unexpected charges. Just your business's big idea. With smart spend controls, automation that crushes busy work, and real-time insights so you can make it happen. In other words, Ramp completely reimagined finance to make it work for your business. Get set up, issue corporate cards, and start making payments in less than 15 minutes. See how Ramp does finance. Join today and get $250 just for signing up. Just go to ramp.com/offer. That's ramp.com/offer to get $250 for signing up. That's ramp.com/offer.
Hey, it's Jared for Hiller. Sometimes replacing equipment in your home can be overlooked until something breaks, but there's actually big problems that can come from outdated, old vintage HVAC systems. Older systems require more maintenance and results in higher utility bills. This month during Hiller's Vintage Showdown, they're giving away a free HVAC system to the owner of the oldest unit. It's easy to enter. Just go online to happyhiller.com and submit a picture of your old unit. Everybody wins with a trade-in credit and 0% interest financing for up to 48 months on replacement. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Will they find a home? Sponsored by Geico. Sarah wants a yard. My own little paradise. Brad, however, hates yard work.
The only thing I hate more than cutting the grass is paying someone to cut the grass.
Compromise is tough, but these two won't have to compromise when they bundle home and car insurance with Geico. It's easy, and they could save even more. In the end, Sarah and Brad found a great home with a yard. A very, very small yard.
Time to get it done. And I'm done.
Bundling without compromise at geico.com.
Your Game Center update.
This Game Center update is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. The Nashville Predators are back on the Bridgestone Arena ice tonight as they host Vegas. The Preds are looking to rebound from a 5-1 loss to Dallas last night. Nashville remains 5 points out of the final playoff spot with only 6 games remaining in the regular season. Puck drop for Preds versus Golden Knights is set for 7 with pregame at 6 right here on the Preds Radio Network. UConn was crowned the men's basketball champion last night in a 76-59 win over San Diego State. It's UConn's 5th national title in school history, and the Nashville Sounds and their season began over the weekend. Tonight they are in Memphis to take on the Redbirds, affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals. Hear Jeff Hem on the call starting at 6:30 on your home of the Sounds, 94.9 The Fan. This update is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. I'm Ian Safar for 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators. 1025 and 106.3.
Score by Matt Duchene.
A gunny performance. Do your job.
And the Tigers regain the lead.
The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Where you have a voice.
He had a competent coaching staff. You just play terrible and you keep playing.
And we have strong opinions.
What a whiny freaking crybaby response.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk, 1025 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, 1025, 106.3 The Game. Streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to Superbook Sports. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios today. Bridgestone Arena, Preds, and Vegas Golden Knights tonight right here on 1025, 106.3 The Game at 7 o'clock. Great tickets, of course, still available. So, who stayed up late last night to watch basketball? Ian, did you make it through? Did you see this? We said on the shout, like just because it's women's basketball and not men's basketball, does that not mean that it doesn't count? And it kind of put that executive, kind of stopped them in their tracks. And I say that because it always feels like whenever women's basketball gets brought up, it's like an inclusion thing. It's like, we're talking about women's basketball because we feel like we have to consider women's basketball interesting when most people out there don't feel that way. Sometimes that's kind of how I feel like ESPN for years had pushed that. And I understood it because, again, I love women's basketball. I watch women's basketball. I root for my team in women's basketball. I know the coaches. I know the assistant coaches. I know the referees. I know that sport. This is the first year, though, where I have felt like we didn't need to talk about women's basketball. We wanted to talk about women's basketball. We didn't try to convince anybody to watch women's basketball. We wanted to watch women's basketball this year. This is the first time that I feel dead certain that I can say the women's basketball tournament was more interesting than the men's basketball tournament. Now, people are always going to watch men's basketball over women's basketball, and the TV ratings for the championship last night were 14.7 million, but the women's game was 9.9 million. And I'm not saying that 10 million viewers is a World Series game or an NBA Finals, but it's close. And so this is the first time that I am just sitting back in amazement at how many people cared about women's basketball this year. How many people wanted to watch the women's basketball game on Sunday? The amount of people that wanted to talk about the women's basketball game yesterday, and not just on this show, but probably at your water coolers and on social media and everything else. How much are we talking about the men's basketball tournament today? I mean, Connecticut's a great team. I'm not taking anything away from them. I told you after I watched them in the Sweet 16, I said that's the best team in the country. And they were. In this tournament, they were by far the best team in this country. And yet, the more interesting topic is women's basketball. It's, this girl looks like Larry Bird out there. And then the argument of, well, is she Larry Bird? Is she Pete Maravich? You know, Gino Auriemma came out and said that his daughter called him, and she said that he's Pete or that Caitlin Clark is Pete Maravich. And I think she's Larry Bird. A lot of people text me, you know, she's Steph Curry at Davidson. And I'm like, no, you know, she led the country in assists per game. Everybody wanted to watch Caitlin Clark play. Then when Angel Reese stuck her finger in Caitlin Clark's face, it became legit controversy. And I'm sitting back as somebody who's liked women's basketball for 15 years, somebody who, you know, for years had tried to convince people just please care about women's basketball. I'm sitting here thinking, wow, look at all the people around the country that have a passionate feeling about controversy stemming from women's basketball. And it's not like it's some once-in-a-lifetime women's basketball discussion, right? Like, people are going to watch next year. Caitlin Clark's going to play next year. LSU's going to talk trash next year. People are going to watch. And I am just amazed by it. You know, I have said this about baseball. I think one of the biggest problems for baseball is that they lack controversy. What's the biggest controversy in baseball? Now, when I was a kid, we had all kinds of controversy, right? We had Barry Bonds, and we had Sammy Sosa, and we had this guy's breaking the record, but is it really worth breaking the record there? We had Rafael Palmeiro waving his finger at Congress and then getting suspended. We had Roger Clemens throwing the end of a baseball bat at Mike Piazza. We had a real controversy in baseball. Now, we're lucky if we get one controversial baseball story every 2 or 3 years. It's like, remember when Chris Sale cut up the White Sox uniforms? That was a big controversy. We never have controversy in baseball. And I've actually talked to people that work at both MLB Network and NHL Network because they're run together. And I've said, here's the problem. The problem for baseball. Controversy sells. You know the old story, the old line, if it bleeds, it reads? Controversy sells. And baseball has none of it. I guess the Astros cheating, you know, that was a controversy, but it was more so like baseball was like, we don't want to talk about this, sweep it under the rug. And so where baseball's very clearly, you know, 3 or 4 in terms of popularity, and it's more of a regional sport than it is a national sport, nobody on ESPN is going to talk about baseball. They don't talk about baseball segments on the radio, and they're not going to talk baseball segments on the radio. But if you get some kind of controversy, they'll talk about it. So the only place people can go to hear baseball talk is the league-owned MLB network. Well, the league-owned network isn't going to want to bring on controversy. So it's like, controversy's good. I told you, I thought what Angel Reese did in the LSU game, I thought that was so classless. And I would be embarrassed if a Louisville player did that. if Haley Van Lith or Mikasa Robinson or Olivia Cochran, if one of them went up and stuck their ring finger in Caitlin Clark's face, and Caitlin Clark talked all that trash against us, I still would have been embarrassed by it. I still thought it was classless. But that doesn't mean it's good for popularity and interest, because it is. Again, the women's game, which wasn't in prime time, had 9.9 million viewers. The men's game, which again is men's basketball, which is the crowning achievement of the $1 billion a year tournament for the NCAA, had 14.7. They only had 5 million more viewers. Is that not crazy? That a women's basketball did, more than a Major League Baseball LCS game? More or the same as an NBA Eastern-Western Conference final game? I mean, I'll tell you right now, the NHL, and I love the NHL. I'm a season ticket holder. The NHL would kill for 9.9 million viewers for a Stanley Cup final game. I mean, I am just wowed that this year, in my opinion, the story of March Madness this year, and I thought we had a great tournament. I thought we had 2 great tournaments. The story of March Madness for me is that this was not a, hey, we have to include women's basketball. It was a, we want to watch women's basketball. And I think that the women's tournament was more interesting than the men's tournament. And I hope it stays that way. In order to do that, you're going to have to pump out a Caitlin Clark every year. And I'll tell you this right now, I've been doing this for a long time, and there have been a lot of good players in women's basketball that don't get the love that they've deserved. They're not all Caitlin Clark. She is, when I say Larry Bird, I am not saying that lightly. And I know Larry Bird doesn't come around every year. And that's what I see with Caitlin Clark. But I'm just amazed by it. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. It's almost like soccer, right? Like in soccer. Now, look, do we care more about men's soccer than we do women's soccer? Sure. But people watch U.S. women's soccer now. I mean, the U.S. women's team is popular. And I think we're headed that way with women's basketball. 615-737-1025. We'll get to some of your phones on this. And again, Ian, have we ever taken as many phones as we took yesterday on women's basketball?
No, I can't say we did.
I mean, we took a lot of phones yesterday.
There were some fired up people.
We took a lot of phones on women's basketball. All right, Connecticut, best team in the tournament, start to finish, no doubt. I have so many compliments to give them. And so I'm going to give it the best compliment I can. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Be sure to join us for the second annual Music City Celebrity Golf Tournament benefiting Souls for Souls on June 7th at Hermitage Golf Course. Put your team together and come play with athletes, musicians, and other local celebrities to support a great cause and have loads of fun. Plus, you'll have the chance to win awesome prizes. Sign up to play, sponsor, or donate at thegamenashville.com/golf.
The crowd is standing on its feet. It's in the hole! It's in the hole!
Join 102.5 The Game for the second annual Music City Celebrity Golf Tournament benefiting Souls for Souls, June 7th at Hermitage Golf Course. Put your team together and come play with athletes, musicians, and other local celebs.
See the ball.
Support a great cause and have loads of fun. Plus, you'll have the chance to win awesome prizes. Sign up to play, sponsor, or donate at thegamenashville.com/golf.
Some people don't do well under pressure. At Northern Tool and Equipment, we do it best. Whether you're spraying down the shop or getting the winter grime off your house, a Northern Tool pressure washer says you're serious about spring cleaning. From an all-electric power horse to a Honda-powered North Star, we'll help you build your perfect cold or hot water package with all the chemicals, attachments, and everything you need for the job ahead. Northern Tool and Equipment. We're made for this. Come see us in store or shop online at northerntool.com.
It's Quaz with Little Harpeth, and I'm just having one of our Chicken Scratch American Pilsners. It's one refreshing beer and a good example of the German lagers that we craft right here in Nashville. Chicken Scratch is made with locally sourced raw white corn, giving it a subtle cornbready sweetness. And speaking of sweetness, Chicken Scratch's closest associate goes by the name of Deer Crossing Hellas, also a lager with a light, crisp body and golden color, and it won us a gold medal at the Great American Beer Festival. So be on the lookout for our craft lagers. And as always, thank you for supporting our little brewery.
What if you could be credit card debt-free in 10 days and save as much as $1,000 a month? Loan Pronto's all-new Express Equity Line of Credit program is just what you need. Hey, Willie Donick here. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a small portion of the equity you have and enjoy a super low monthly payment. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days. And a $50,000 loan would only cost you around $400 a month. Use that money to pay off high-interest credit cards or do a home improvement. You can access up to 90% of your home's equity, and 9 out of 10 homeowners won't even need an appraisal. Even if you did a total refi recently or just bought your home, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program. Stop the madness and say no to 24% interest fees. Call Loan Pronto today. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Have you seen the selection of luxury pre-owned Rolex watches they now have at Genesis Diamonds? If not, prepare to be amazed.
If people really know the watch world, they come in and they're in shock. They're like, I cannot believe you have this selection here. They're able to see them, touch them, feel them.
Meet Genesis watch expert Charlie Rivers, who says over the past few years, Genesis buyers have scoured the world to build a collection of luxury pre-owned Rolexes, including all the hard-to-find models.
Daytonas, Pandas, Sky Dwellers, a huge selection of Submariners, Hulks, Kermits, anything that you could ever possibly want. We have every luxury pre-owned Rolex that we have here. We ensure that it's in pristine condition.
So come in today and find the timepiece of your dreams at Genesis. Or if you already own a Rolex and are looking to trade for a different model or even sell it, Genesis can help you get top dollar.
If you have a Rolex, definitely bring it in. I would love to see it and do a complimentary evaluation on it and see what we can do for you.
Genesis Diamonds, now with one of the largest selections of luxury pre-owned Rolexes in America. Green Hills and Cool Springs.
We try to stay cool by being on social media.
I'm with it. I'm hip.
Follow us on Twitter at 1025thegame and on Instagram at 1025thegame Nashville.
Hey!
Oh yeah, and like us on Facebook too. You're listening to Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Is that appropriate? Don't you know, just someday he'll be a coach of his own program. And this is becoming a family dynasty, if you will. And Dutch, what a year he's had too. Hurley and the Huskies have their dreams come true.